Ho, 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 ho! It is a holly jolly day indeed. I, Joe Mullinax, am excited. You can bet Damichael Cole is excited. Christmas time has arrived. It is finally the day after a long and drawn-out offseason. Regular season basketball is here. It's day one. Girls, what's today?
It's Christmas!
Let's lock it!
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ho, 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 ho. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas, one and all. It is I, Joe Mullinax, not to be confused with Santa Claus. That was an excellent Santa Claus. You're right. You're probably listening to this if you're not watching and you're thinking of Santa on the podcast today. No, it's just me, Joe Mullinax, here with the incomparable Damichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, and two of my better quarters, I guess I would say at this point, Caroline and Abby joining us for the cold open of the show. It is Christmas. We are so excited to have you with us. It's going to be a great episode, a great day to be talking Grizzlies basketball here on Locked On Grizzlies. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, literally anywhere you can pick up a show. Make sure you're making Damichael and I your first listen each and every time that an episode drops. It is much appreciated. Damichael Cole, thank you for humoring my daughters. They're excited. It's Christmas. It was Christmas Eve.
As they should be. As they should be. It's Christmas. It's time to open up some gifts and see what Santa had under the tree for the Grizzlies, right?
Well, especially since it feels like there's been a lump of coal over the last couple of weeks here with all the injury news.
The Grinch has really been trying to steal the show.
Yeah. How the Grinch stole Christmas. But thankfully, as you pointed out on yesterday's show, for the first time since 2021, both John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. will be on the court together on opening night for the Memphis Grizzlies, an all-defensive top 25 or so player in the NBA next to an all-NBA caliber point guard. You got to imagine that's got to be good for something, right? So hopefully we're seeing some competitive basketball here tonight, and hopefully you're going to be with us each and every step of the way as the season begins here on Locked On Grizzlies. And Damichael, we're going to start off with all of the injury questions and everything that's been associated with the instability of the Grizzlies' minutes going in and through the preseason. We really don't have any idea what Tuomas Isolo's rotations are going to look like going into tonight's game. So we're going to start there, and I'm going to put you on the spot to get us started as people still recover from my daughter screaming it's Christmas. What do you see Isolo doing? Do you see it being an 11-man rotation? Because I don't. Do you see it being less than that? Who do you think is the beneficiary from the four guys that are out long-term? That's Zach Edey, Brandon Clark, Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr., who is going to get the most opportunity out of that? Who do you see the rotation being against the Pelicans tonight?
Yeah, I think it is 11 guys in this case, Joe. So my rotation that I'm going to list.
That is wild for the record, if that does indeed occur. They're down four people.
And look, they've emphasized playing fast, playing with intensity, speed and intensity, right? And look, at the end of the day, you need the bodies. You need the players who can actually – make this look like it's flowing seamlessly when you're talking about, playing this fast. And you're going to have John Morant running the show. Like, that was a point of emphasis for me to ask, ask coach about the difference. Because there is a difference where, there's a difference between Javon Small and Scottie Pippen Jr. and Ty Jerome's fast and John Morant's fast. And they haven't played in the preseason game with John Morant's fast because it's a whole different level. So with that all being said, I think that they're going to need 11 bodies just from, we need guys to get rest standpoint. Like at some point here in the next week or so, I'm sure Ja will have more of his wind under him. And same thing for a couple of the other guys who didn't play much in the preseason. And you can kind of shorten some things a little bit. But I got the starters pretty much mapped out like we all do. It's John Morant, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Jock Landale at the center spot. No surprises there. But here's where it gets a little tricky. Javon Small is the backup point guard, right? And then you got Santi Aldama, who is solidified himself. But three players for me will primarily play in between, those guys. So it's going to be 10 for the most part, I would say. And those three guys will be Cam, Cam Spencer, Cedric Coward, and Olivier Maxine Prosper. I also think Gigi Jackson will get some type of time in there. So I guess you could say it's more of a 10-man rotation, but I believe that Gigi Jackson will get an opportunity. So of the available players, John Conchar is not in my rotation, and PJ Hall isn't in my rotation. So my rotation pretty much has one center, and Jock Landale, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be the backup 5. Or, when Jock comes in the game, he's playing alongside of Santi. You're going to rotate Jaren, to the center when Jock comes out of the game. So it's going to kind of be a staggering Jock Landale and Jaren Jackson Jr. type situation, just like the Grizzlies will probably do the same with John Morant and Javon Small for the most part. But I think we'll probably see a couple minutes of Cam Spencer being the primary ball handler. So those are the 10 for me. But if I had my choice, which is to get it to 11, Gigi Jackson would be my 11th man.
Just to make sure we're on the same page, I haven't checked to see. Well, hold on. Let me confirm. I did check to see, but I want to make sure that I'm correct on this. You said that your rotation featured guys that were actually available for the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Several injuries, even beyond what we've been talking about, obviously. Vince Williams Jr. dealing with a heel issue.
He's out.
Out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
yeah, he's the heel soreness is still a thing with him. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. I wanted to make sure you weren't completely giving up on our boy Vince Williams there. I think my rotation is similar to yours in large part because it has to be, because there really isn't any other bodies.
I figured it would be, because the one guy that I'm not playing much on the wing is the guy you're definitely not going to advocate for.
Yeah, he didn't have a chance in my rotation. And Coach Mullinax's rotation, Johnny Basketball, is not cracking the top 15, if I'm being honest with you. I think that you're onto something in terms of, if you're going to be without a true big and you're going to be without a true point guard beyond Morant and Small, it makes sense to put yourself in a position to be as long and as athletic and to just throw things at the Pelicans as best you can. And we'll talk about the perimeter defense and paint defense here in a little bit. I am of the mind that you really need to lean into that and put yourself in a position to have as much size on the perimeter and the wing in particular as possible, so that you can contend with what the Pelicans are going to throw at you. Because the New Orleans Pelicans on paper don't look bad, right? And you're talking about a Zion Williamson that is
they got
ready
some talent
to go.
over there now. Yeah,
they have some talent. They have Trey Murphy over there. They have all sorts of guys that have the capacity.
Herb Jones, Jordan Poole,
yeah, the pool party pulling up in Memphis at FedEx Forum on Wednesday night. So I'm of the mind that you got to throw different bodies at these guys, and I think that's the smart play, even more so than the rotation, because like you said, it kind of is what it is. I'm fascinated by how many minutes these guys are going to play, because as you alluded to, John Morant has not played a single preseason game. I find it hard to believe they're going to throw him out there for 36 minutes tonight. You have Jaren Jackson Jr. that has played one preseason game. I find it hard to believe he's going to play 36 minutes tonight.
He's played 2. They got him out there for 2.
Oh, 2 games, excuse me. So, but it was hit or miss in terms of how long he actually played. They were ramping him up. So that's what I meant. What I struggle with is envisioning them going out there and saying, okay, we know that you're our 2 best players and we need you to be our best players. You've got 36 minutes. But it's counterintuitive, because the less those guys play, the more likely it is the Grizzlies are going to get cooked when they're not on the floor. How do you envision those minutes being distributed, at least when it comes to Jaren in particular?
Yeah, I think 32 is a number that I'm going to be watching for. Who's going to top the 32, 33 range, somewhere in there. But yeah, I think, we should expect to see, more Jaren than Ja, but at the same time, that can change in the blink of an eye. If you've been watching Jaren Jackson Jr. over the last 7 seasons, you know all it takes is tripping over one guy's foot or bringing his arm down on one play, and then 32 minutes can turn into 24 minutes really quick. But yeah, I remember last season when Ja came back and he missed a lot of preseason action. Then he actually started playing in the preseason last season, but he missed a lot of time in the preseason. And I remember when that situation happened, that first game back, Ja was winded. He very much was winded. So I think that could be the case here because what the Grizzlies aren't going to do is alter, their identity in order to keep Ja out there longer. Like, no, we're still going to play fast, and Ja's going to play fast. And it's just going to be, hey, now when you're tired, you just come out of the game. And there's going to be conversations. There's going to be dialogue or whatever. And Javon Small, will get an opportunity. So I think 32 is kind of a good number. But it's the first game of the season. A lot of these teams will play deeper, quote unquote, rotations at this point before they start to kind of, lock in on a set 9 or 10 guys eventually.
It's utterly ridiculous that we're going to say, okay, John Morant, max basketball player, we're going to play our system, sir. So Javon Small is going to get his 16 to 18 minutes because you're not playing fast enough. I'm sorry, Mr. Morant. To me, that's just crazy, but that's probably a topic for another episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let Damichael and I know in the comments, how do you see minutes getting distributed? Who do you think should be in or out of the rotation tonight? At Damichael C on X, at Joe Mullinax for me on X. When we come back here on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies, we are talking about the defense, something that was a major struggle for the Grizzlies in the preseason. How can they get straight with Zion and company coming to town? Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen passing yards, Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in literally under a minute. And my favorite part beyond that is they just added this thing called stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also a fun way to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. And I also like the new reboot feature. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Plus, there's a special max discount promotion live on the board right now. Make sure that you're checking it out next time that it is available. They do lots of great jobs with those sorts of things. There was one recently for the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry. They really are leaning not just into football, but basketball. So download the PrizePick apps today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Bilt. No one likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Bilt comes in. Bilt is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through Bilt, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and so much more. But Bilt isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love that with Bilt, your rent actually works for you. You're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay. Whether you're grabbing food at your favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, you can earn rewards. Bilt has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use that link so that they know that we sent you. So Damichael, as I mentioned earlier, the defense was no bueno, right? In the preseason, they did not play well really in any way, shape, or form for a consistent amount of time, at least. Enter the Pelicans. Enter Zion Williamson, who, when healthy and engaged, is one of the best players in the NBA. Add in a Trey Murphy. Add in all sorts of different weapons that New Orleans can theoretically throw at the Memphis Grizzlies. And on opening night, unlike Memphis, the Pelicans actually have most of these guys available to them. How do the Grizzlies go about trying to play better defense now that the games matter against an offense that could be, again, potentially one of the most prolific in the NBA when they're all clicking?
Yeah, when I'm looking at the Pelicans on the perimeter, they're solid, but they don't scare me from the standpoint of, what some other teams can bring to the table. Like we saw Trey Murphy make that prototypical, the leap that we talked about last season. And we're going to see if he continues to build on that. We've seen, the good, bad, and the ugly with Jordan Poole and all the times, where the Golden State Warriors, played against the Grizzlies and whatnot. So, we know what those two guys are capable of, and so many other guys on the perimeter over there as well. But this game is all about what you can do against Zion Williamson. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. The Grizzlies have struggled. We've talked about this time and time again. Have struggled with not only giving up paint points allowed throughout the preseason. Not only did they struggle with that, but the efficiency the teams had points to the bigger issue, where it's not just you're giving up paint points because you're running teams off the 3-point line or anything like that. You're giving up paint points because teams are saying there's no threat. We're not scared of any of these guys at the rim. And we saw some of that. We saw LaMelo Ball challenging, Santi Aldama and Jock Landale. And we've seen other guys just, fearlessly go to the rim, where against certain teams, they're saying, oh, let me stop. That's a floater, or whatever the case may be. But they are attacking the Grizzlies front court with zero fear that their shot's going to be blocked. And a lot of those shots haven't been blocked. And this is just this season. Santi Aldama isn't known as a shot blocker. Jock Landale isn't known as some great shot blocker. Jaren is the one guy who can be that guy for you, but he's one player. He is one player. It's not like when you have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey in the lineup together and you put a little bit more fear into opponents. But it's not the perfect combination, the fact that you have one of the most dynamic paint scoring players in the NBA going against a team that struggles mightily in the paint. So this will be a good test, though, because we're going to be talking about this a lot this season. A lot of teams are going to try to attack the Grizzlies at the rim. And who is a better case of can we be better than we were in this area and than we were in the preseason than Zion Williamson? Zion Williamson is going to test the Grizzlies in the paint because he's going to be relentless and he's going to keep coming. He's going to keep coming at you at the rim, and he's going to keep, he's going to be relentless. That's how he scores a lot of his points. And it's all about, what does it look like, with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Santi Aldama and Jock Landale trying to wall him up and make things difficult for him? What does it look like with the perimeter guys kind of coming down and helping out and being effective? And you might have noticed in my rotation, I said the name Olivier Maxence before I said Gigi Jackson. We know who I think the better player of the two is. But in this game in particular, you're going to need some athletes on the floor. And Gigi Jackson is an athlete, but Max, defensively, what he can do, he might be one of your best bets. I could see a situation where Zion is having a bunch of success and they say, Max, get in there. Like, we don't care about the offense. Just slow down Zion Williamson however you can. So that's really the big question for me. I think in pretty much every other area of the game, the Grizzlies are either close to even or they'll have the advantage.
How they maximize the guys that they want to build this new mentality around is going to be fascinating, right? Jalen Wells, who he's matched up against to start the game. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who he's matched up on the perimeter. Because theoretically, Damichael, they are in a better position. The injuries that they have sustained are not necessarily ones that are going to hurt their perimeter defense. At least theoretically, they shouldn't be, right? Jalen Wells is still there. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope still there. Ty Jerome is not known as a massive perimeter defender. The biggest guy that is impacted in terms of hurting that level of defense is obviously Scottie Pippen Jr., but he's a reserve, right? You could pretty easily argue is their fourth guard. So they're going to have a majority of their pieces. How those guys are utilized with Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant on the floor, the vision for Isolo with this new scheme is really going to be on full display for the first time. And that could be an advantage, right? The uncertainty, the lack of knowledge of what exactly this Grizzlies team is going to be. You wrote about it recently in the Commercial Appeal. Plenty of people have talked about it. On opening night, that can be an advantage because the Pelicans don't really know what the heck the Grizzlies are going to do when they're at full strength. And technically, they're still not at full strength. But in particular, when Ja and Jaren are out there together, we haven't seen it in the new Isolo era.
Yeah, it's a good point that you mentioned, Joe. And it also leads me into something that I've been hearing about, too. Coaches have been watching Paris tape. I've even had, a coach say it to me, opposing coach, not a Grizzlies coach. I've had an opposing NBA coach actually point out the fact that he's been watching, some of the Paris basketball stuff and how it's similar to what the Grizzlies, are doing now and whatnot. So there's some tape deep down buried over there. You got to go overseas to get it. But there's some tape that I believe coaches are tapping into in terms of what Isolo wants to do. But The personnel is a little bit different, right? And that's where kind of, to your point, the Grizzlies can catch some people off guard because there ain't no Ja Morant, over there. And there ain't no Jaren Jackson Jr., 6'11", can shoot the tray ball, come off the dribble, and do all these great things offensively as well as defensively. So that is something where you can catch these teams off guard earlier in the season before they're able to adjust.
99% or 95% of the guys that are over in Europe playing right now would rather be playing in the NBA. And if an NBA team made the call, they'd be across the pond as quickly as they could possibly go. So I do think that's important to point out. The talent difference is massive and how that connects to the scheme that Isolo is trying to run. Again, what does it look like with Ja Morant on the floor? You could say that because of the way Ja finished last season, but as I've liked to say numerous times, Isolo was trying to land the plane, right? The plane was on fire and breaking in half. He was landing the plane. Now we're taking off with Isolo in the cockpit. How is he going to handle this is going to be fascinating to watch unfold. Hit up Damichael on X, at Damichael C, me at Joe Mullinax. Let us know in the comments. How do you think is the best way to attack Zion and company as they try to get a win on opening night? And speaking of winning on opening night, when we return, we're going to close out this episode of the show talking exactly that. Who is going to win this contest and why? Stick around as we close out this season opening episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Rugiet. Let's be honest. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everyone sometimes. And when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little boost, a little support. And that's where Rugiet comes into play. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. It makes its own way to get started. You connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. There's no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments, and if prescribed, your treatment ships directly straight to your door and discreetly straight to your door. It's a fast, simple, and private process, all handled by real doctors that prioritizes confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. Different kind of moves going to be made on the court of FedEx Forum. Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal in Memphis, Tennessee, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. You, of course, are of Locked On Grizzlies fame as well, but you will be there covering for the Commercial Appeal. I will have our post-game show. Remember, this season, we're going to do our best posting episodes in about an hour or so-ish after games are done. Doing it that way instead of waiting till the next morning, trying something a little bit different this season. That'll start with Wednesday night post-game against the Pelicans. What are some things that you need to see in person on the floor at FedEx Forum Wednesday night tonight to get the Grizzlies over the top for a win?
I need to see this aggressive version of Ja Morant, that I've talked about, that you've talked about as well. But you just look at the roster now, and it's tailor-made for him, to be that guy. And I think Isolo gets it, right? When I asked him, a couple days ago, what is it going to be like incorporating Ja Morant back into the fold after all the time that he missed? And he said, you just get him the ball, put the ball in his hands, and the rest will take care of itself. And it is that simple. I mean, it's not complicated.
That's why they pay him the big bucks, right? Just give him the ball and let him cook.
Just get a ball to that guy. Give it to 12, and he'll figure out the rest. So, I think, he has to have that mentality, though. Like, Ja Morant can't have that passive, I want to get Jalen Wells and Katavious Caldwell-Pope. Those dudes will get going. And at the end of the day, when he draws defenders, he's going to make the right play. Like, Ja isn't the guy that's going to shoot over 3-4 guys, consistently at least, or whatever the case may be. He's going to make the right play. So let the game take care of itself. I want to see, Ja be aggressive in that way. If we get that aggressive version of Ja, I feel like it's hunting scoring opportunities, I think everything will go well.
I'm optimistic as well. I think there's a lot of opportunity there for the Grizzlies to get Ja Morant going. And as I mentioned on yesterday's show, I need to see the Ja and Jaren two-man game being explored in a different way, in a more complete way. That to me is one of the keys to the Grizzlies overperforming expectations for a lot of folks is, are they going to be able to get the most out of Jaren and Ja together? Because so much is being invested in these two franchise cornerstones. How are they going to be able to coexist, especially on the offensive end, with this new version of Jaren Jackson Jr.? But those two guys are obvious answers, right? It's going to be an X factor. It's going to be somebody that the Grizzlies perhaps don't expect to be a contributor that's going to do that, contributing toward a win. And I'm going to give an answer that's going to surprise some people. Jock Landale is my guy, my X factor. If he is able to go out there and do things that Zach Edey is capable of doing. Again, if we talk about maximizing Ja Morant, that's the reason Landale is starting, right? That's the reason he's the screen setter. He's the rebounder. He's the one that was best available in the eyes of the front office, emulates and models what Edey brings to this scheme. So he has to be close to that. He doesn't have to be a big point scorer. He doesn't have to get a double-double, but he has to set hard screens. He has to be a physical presence in the paint, and he has to allow for Ja in particular, but even Jaren, to be the best versions of themselves in order to win. I think Landale is somebody that we're underselling as an important piece going into this game.
Oh, definitely. And to that point, one player that we haven't talked about in this episode yet is Kevon Looney, who spent all those seasons with the Golden State Warriors. And he's out. He's injured right now and won't be available for the season opener for the Pelicans. And that's one of those moves where you're Kevon Looney. You're like, fringe rotation guy at this point of his career, whatever. Nah. For against the Grizzlies. And Grizzlies fans, you should know this. I shouldn't even have to say this to Grizzlies fans. If you watched Game 6 of the 2022 Western Conference semifinals, you saw Kevon Looney outwork Steven Adams, on the glass and completely changed the outlook of that series from that standpoint, because the Grizzlies found something with Steven Adams on the glass, and they said, we're going to put Kevon Looney in the starting lineup, and that was that. So no Kevon Looney takes away that other big issue that I've been talking about with the rebounding. Now you're pretty much dealing with guys like Yves Missi and Zion Williamson, who I think it's more of a fair matchup, so to speak, when those are the type of guys going against Jock Landale, Jaren Jackson Jr., Santi Aldama, etc. So this isn't one of those games where there will be games going forward where I expect the Grizzlies to get totally dominated on the glass. And because of the fact that I don't expect them to get dominated on the glass, I think that goes into your point. A guy like Jock Landale, because he's not going against Ivica Zubac or Domantas Sabonis or Nikola Jokic. Going against a guy like Yves Missi should be a much better matchup for him. And he should definitely make his presence felt on the glass, not just offensive glass, but on the defensive glass as well.
Putting you on the spot, partner. Who wins opening night, the Grizzlies or the Pelicans?
For those reasons right there, I'm going to go with the Grizzlies. I think Zion Williamson is going to give the Grizzlies everything they can handle, because he's really going to attack them with his rim pressure and his ability to score in the paint. But with that being said, the perimeter guys on the Pelicans, they're solid. But Memphis didn't show it much in the preseason. But look, it's the real games now. And we've seen Jalen Wells and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope defend at high levels. If they defend at those levels, plus the return of Ja Morant, you got Jaren Jackson Jr., and you got the fact that this Pelicans team isn't one that I'm looking at and saying, man, they are built to dominate the Grizzlies on the glass. I think the Grizzlies pull it out at home.
I think the Grizzlies pull it out at home as well, and I think that once again the Pelicans are going to have their hearts ripped out by the man that they call Ja Morant, Call 12 himself. I think he's going to be one of the key components there. But again, if the Grizzlies win this game convincingly, it's going to have to be because Jaren and Ja work better together offensively than they have at any point in their partnership. At least the start of that, seeing that in the Isolo system, that's how the Grizzlies really kind of make a statement on opening night. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a couple possession game. Maybe a game of runs early in the season. I could see that, but I think it's going to be close going into the final frame unless Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are able to be the two best players on the court, as they are physically capable of being in this contest. Thanks so much for being with us on this edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Damichael will be there at FedEx Forum. He'll be covering for the Commercial Appeal and Locked On Grizzlies. But I will have the post-game show. We're going to do this new bit where I'm going to try to put the episodes out, or Damichael on road games. For those of you that are everydayers that have been around for a while, if you look at the early season schedule, you see that next week there's an early West Coast trip. I ain't covering those games. Those are going to be Damichael episodes, I can assure you. So whether it's me or Damichael, we're going to do our best to put them up within an hour or so of the game ending, trying some a little bit different this year. Make sure you're staying up late with us, staying up late with me, going into our Thursday edition. Again, it'll be a Wednesday night, technically, edition of the show, talking about everything we saw from Grizzlies Pelicans and looking ahead early on to that early season back-to-back coming up, partner. A tough start to the season, as we talked about a little bit earlier, at least in terms of the sheer amount of games played.
Yeah, they're going to have 2 of those in the first 10 games. So they're going to hit the ground running. And look, at first I was curious as to how they would handle those with guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. Does he play one leg of the back-to-back and things like that? But are you even afforded that now? Like,
no.
That's where I was like with Ja, but you can't, it's because now if you sit Ja on one leg of back-to-back, Javon Small is starting at point guard. There's no Scotty, there's no Ty Jerome. So it does shift some things there, but you know what? Like you said, this is why they get paid the big bucks. They get paid a lot of money to be out there. They want to be available. Jaren wants to be available. Ja wants to be available. So yeah, let's do it. It's Christmas. It's time to hoop.
Happy Christmas, one and all. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube. Make Damichael and I a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. Become an everydayer. Be a part of our process in our little corner of the internet that we like to call Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael, have a wonderful time back in FedEx Forum tonight. It's going to be fun. It's going to be loud. It's going to be exciting. Let the Christmas festivities begin. Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas, one and all. And to all a good day. We'll see you next time on Locked On Grizzlies.